Hello everybody, Some would Sam the Reverse, and welcome to my review for Batwoman Season 1, Episode 3, titled Down, Down, Down. There are some things I liked about this episode, and there are some things I disliked about this episode. I'd say it's just about as good as last week's episode. I'll go over my likes and dislikes about this episode. Sorry if you can hear the rain in the background. It's a bit rainy where I am right now, so it can just serve as some ambient noise. If you can hear it, I'm not sure if you will be able to hear it, but if you can, just don't worry about it. But nonetheless, let's go over what I liked about this episode. Um, let's start with the main villain of this season, Alice. Her role in this episode was actually fairly good. Her and Kate seem to be getting along quite well, which is first for the Arrowverse main villains and uh, and the hero. They seem to be on decent terms. Obviously, Alice is a psychotic murderer, and Kate is trying to be the hero of Gotham, but they are getting along. And Kate and Alice, they had a deal this episode. Kate would give Alice Dodgson back if Alice didn't kill for 24 hours, and obviously Alice couldn't do that, so I don't know if Kate's keeping Dodgson for herself or something. I don't know what's going on with that. They didn't really talk about that. Another thing I liked about this episode was the relationship between Mary and Sophie, which I didn't really think would be a good uh, relationship from the trailer. It just seemed that they were putting two characters that don't really interact or that wouldn't normally interact. They just put them together for the episode, but it actually worked quite well uh, for the episode. I don't know. Well, I don't really know why it worked well, but it was actually quite enjoyable. This series doesn't really have intriguing or exciting characters that much, but putting them together, uh, it was decent in this episode. Another, probably the best thing about this episode is Kate getting her new suit and her new name. Batwoman has finally showed up in this show. She stopped using Batman's suit, or she painted it, and she got a new wig, and it looks awesome. I have to say, it looks really nice. The suit looks really good. But um, that's basically all I really liked about this episode. Like I said, Alice was kind of good in this episode, not just her relationship with Kate, but also her mind games that she was playing with Kate's dad, Jacob Kane, was really good. I liked her and she went to their penthouse. She played a song that her dad taught her when she was little, and she called her dad and was just playing mind games with him, and he still is in denial. He doesn't think that she actually is Beth. He just thinks that she's trying to play mind games with him, and she really is Alice, or she really is Beth. I think we know that. I think it's basically confirmed, but he still doesn't believe so. Some negatives of the episode. Uh, First of all, Tommy Elliott. I was really looking forward to seeing the introduction of Hush into the Arrowverse, and I think they completely wasted him. He stole this railgun, is what Luke called it. Who, by the way, Luke was actually really cool in this episode. I like his role in this episode. But Luke, um, basically, he explained this railgun that Batman made that could punch a hole right through the bat suit. And basically Bruce made it in case the bat suit ever got stolen, which I mean is something that Bruce would do, is something that Batman would do, but it doesn't really make sense who would steal the bat suit. It would make more sense that the gun would eventually get stolen, which is what happened in this episode, and that's what Tommy Elliott stole. Tommy Elliott in this episode, I really didn't like the way they shifted his origin story in the comics. Bruce Wayne's father, Thomas Wayne, saves Thomas Elliott's mother, which basically makes Thomas Thomas hates the Waynes after that, and he wants to ruin Bruce's life, and he's jealous about Bruce's money. In this episode, he's jealous of Bruce's money, and he's super excited about finally being richer than Bruce Wayne. That's something they took out of the comics. And another thing they took out of the comics is his mother getting saved, but he kind of wanted to kill his parents. They, instead of having Thomas Wayne save her, instead Batman saved her in this universe. And I didn't really like that change because I don't, I don't know if in this universe Bruce and Tommy, I think they were childhood friends. I think Kate said that they were childhood friends. So that gives them a personal connection. But I really don't like that they used him for this series because he has a personal connection with Batman, not Kate. So there's really no reason for them to be using him. But I really didn't like that they changed it now that Batman saved his mom, and now he knows that Batman is Bruce Wayne. Which, if Batman ever comes to the show and has a showdown with Thomas Elliot, will be an interesting rivalry. But he's not on the show, and it doesn't really work without him. Thomas Elliot, they really try to stray away from the comics books. I don't know why though. He's a surgeon in the comic books, and it's vital to his storyline. It's vital to him like cutting his face off, and it's just his knowledge of being a surgeon is really part of his sadistic. Is really what makes him sadistic. One of his most important qualities in the comic, and they just scrapped that. They made him a real estate, I don't know, salesman, agent. I don't really know what he is, but he's in the real estate business, which is really stupid, honestly. I think they should have just made him a surgeon. It wouldn't change anything from the episode, but I don't know why they did that. Another negative is Kate's new love interest, Reagan. Regan, I forgot. I think it's Reagan. Um, we see in the next episode in the trailer they're together. I don't really like her that much. She can read people. Don't really like the way she talks. The actress didn't do a very good job, and I'm not really interested to see where that relationship goes. Um, but nonetheless, that's all I'm really going to talk about that storyline. What else did we have in this episode? Not much. We had a little bit more like development on Kate's stepmom's evilness in the background, her being evil. I don't know what she is doing last episode, but last episode she tried to hide the DNA test of Alice's knife, or she tried to stop it from happening. Um, so we'll have to wait and see where that goes. That's one of the only things that's really holding this show together right now for me. I think it's a decent show. It's not great, but there's just nothing really new about this. This new episode doesn't really bring anything new to the table. It's just really what we've seen for the past two episodes, and it's just bringing Thomas Elliot in, a botched version of Tommy Elliot that they really screwed up. I don't really like, and I don't really like him. And at the end, they brought him to Arkham. I hope maybe in Arkham he'll turn out, he'll change and sort of morph into that mentally insane villain we know from the comic books. Maybe he'll cut his own face off and wrap it up, like the picture here shows him as, because he is such a cool Batman villain, and they could have used him as a main villain in the second season or the third season, and really, after this episode, I'm not excited to see him as a main villain. I'd like to see him as a recurring villain, slowly turning into Hush, the one we know from the comic books, and eventually, if they get the rights to Batman and Batman comes in, he comes back for an episode to go up against Bruce, just to see that dynamic between them. But other than that, I'm really not excited to see more of Tommy Elliott. He would work as a normal villain, but the fact that they wasted the Hush character on him, it really makes me mad considering the potential they could have had with the character. Some nods we got to in this episode. We got a Riddler Easter egg in this episode from Hush himself. I think uh, he's the one who told Thomas Bruce's or Batman's identity. So that was a pretty cool nod. We already saw Enigma on the cell in Arkham in the Elseworlds cross world. The Elseworlds, the Elseworlds crossover. I can't speak right now. I'm sorry, but um, another thing about Elseworlds is this is basically in the timeline of Elseworlds. At the end, we saw a shot that looked exactly like the Elseworlds Part 2 shot. I think it was, or Part 1. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure the showrunner or one of the writers or someone said that Elseworlds takes place right after episode 3, which would line up because she just got the name Batwoman. She just got the new suit, so that's another positive of this episode. But as an episode, it's it's a pretty good episode just by itself. The pacing of it is really is pretty solid. Probably the best pacing this season so far in terms of just an episode. The pacing from scene to scene, the acting and the writing was better than it has been, and the characters are starting to get more and more fleshed out, and they're starting to interact with characters they wouldn't usually interact with, like Sophie and Mary. They had a storyline together, and I'm really excited to see where the series will go. But as a whole, this season really hasn't impressed me that much, and the way they used Thomas Elliott in this episode really disappointed me. I hope they turn it around and he comes back and he becomes Hush and he becomes a really cool recurring villain, maybe the Captain Cold of this season. You know how Captain Cold came back a lot in the Flash season 1, like 5 episodes or something. I'm pretty sure this season only has 13 episodes, not the normal 22 for the Arrowverse, which would make sense because they're moving really fast with all the storylines. It's only episode 3, and we've had so much Alice in these 3 episodes. I mean, it was revealed that she was Beth in the first episode. So, um, I think that it is 13 episodes this season, but I really hope they fix Tommy when he comes back. I really hope that they get all these storylines and all these characters flattened out. They started on that road this week, and this is a step in the right direction. It's still not great, but it's still not terrible. It is a step in the right direction. It's probably my favorite episode so far in this season. Episode 1 was decent. Episode 2 was better. Episode 3 is actually good. I'd probably give this episode maybe a 7.8 out of 10, maybe a 7.9 out of 10. There are some good things, like I said, there are some bad things, but for the most part, it is a pretty good episode. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Stay tuned for my Supergirl uh, review that might be up today if I have the time to edit and if I have the time to just upload it and get everything working on it, add it to the playlist and everything. So stay tuned for that. But nonetheless, hope you guys enjoyed. See ya.